Today I want to talk about something that's pretty serious. I want to talk about the first time that I was molested. Good day, good people. I am Dashawn Is, and I'm coming at you live and direct from the dojo. Thank you for joining me. Today I want to talk about something that's pretty serious. It's a pandemic thing, actually. Something that's been very serious that has affected my life in countless ways that I'm sure that I'm not aware of. And a lot of it I am aware of because I kind of pride myself on being self-aware. Doesn't make me a perfect human being, but it does let me know what things are affecting me from moment to moment to the best of my ability, of course. And this topic is molestation. I want to talk about the first time that I was molested at 5 years old. And what inspired me talking about this. This was going to be one of my topics anyway because it's important to me to speak on this. I think it's really important that anybody who's been through what I've been through or worse, and in my story, although very serious, is mild compared to some of the stories of some friends, some family members, some distant family members as well. Just people in general that I meet who have gone through molestation. It's like I said, it's a pandemic situation, and it was inspired to me to talk about this because I recently watched a podcast by this stand-up comedian called Ryan Sickler. He's got a podcast called Honeydew. I found him through Joe Rogan, and if you're into comedians and you're into podcasts, you would have heard of some of these people. But I started with Joe Rogan, and I kind of fell into all these other comedians' podcasts. And this guy, I just clicked on it just because, you know, he seemed like a funny guy. I liked his story, whatever I saw him on. And the podcast is called Honeydew. And what I found out after a few episodes is the whole point of the podcast, which he basically states in the beginning, is you're shining light on dark stories. And because a lot of his people are comedians, a lot of the stories come off pretty funny because there's laughter throughout. But, you know, it's because they're trying to bring some light to a situation that's very dark. And he had on this comedian called, I think it's Mauricio Vance, I think his cat's name is. Very funny dude, jokes. But when I heard this brother's story, I was like, yo, that sounds like my story. And I want to give both of them a shout out, especially Mr. Vance, because, you know, to be a black man at this age and to walk around with this spiritual burden of having been molested and being sexualized at a very young age has been a challenge, because if you are even the least bit self-aware, and even if you're not, you might recognize that, you know, your early sexual experiences color all of your sexual experiences. You know what I'm saying? And if you haven't had formal therapy like myself, because I've never been to a therapist, I'm not opposed to it, by the way. I think therapy is important if you can afford it. I think that in the black community specifically, it's been shitted on over the years because, you know, in the black community, we live with post-traumatic stress disorder like no other culture that I know of. Maybe Jews come close, you know. And that's no disrespect to anybody, and I say come close only because Jewish trauma probably mainly like a lot in our society, it mainly stems from the Holocaust. Specifically with black people, it's an everyday occurrence. You know what I'm saying? Like if you turn on the news and you see another cop kill another black child, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's something that we have to live through. You walk through a store and you're followed, you know what I'm saying? So in our community, it's always about quit acting like a little bitch and man up, straighten up, get over yourself. We have a lot more trauma to deal with. Fuck a therapist, you know what I'm saying? I don't tend to agree with that philosophy. I think that it's really important that all of us, if you can, get down and, you know, find somebody to help you out. I'm in the throes of that right now. It costs money, so, you know, but as soon as I have the money to do it, I'm doing it. It's a lot of backstory. So let me get to the story. When I was around, I want to say I was around 5 years old, I was staying or being babysat by a relative over the summer. We were all in the same house basically. And the way I remember it is at 5, you imitate what you see around you. And I was in my room playing alone. I remember I had this little toy box that had a seat on it. So it was kind of like a love seat. And I was in my room pretending that I was laying on top of a girl and kissing her. I was basically making out with a pillow kind of thing. I don't remember having a pillow, but I think I was just kind of like pretending to be making out. And now that I think about it, I think it's because my first trauma was walking in on my parents doing their thing, getting down on the couch in the living room one night. I'm pretty sure they didn't know that I was there, because as soon as I came around the corner and saw it, I quickly ran back in my room. It was kind of traumatizing. But, in my mind, I'm thinking now that that's probably what led to me playing this role. Maybe I saw something on TV, who the hell knows, but anyway, so I'm in the room, I'm doing this thing, and this relative comes in. And when I say relative, I want you to understand that, like Mr. Vance's story, this wasn't some older, this wasn't an adult, this was this was a young teenager. I don't even know if she was a teenager, but she was definitely, if I was 5, she had to be at least 6, 7 years older than me. At least, and I'm being a little bit cryptic because I'm not trying to blow up anybody's spot. I don't even know if this person's still alive. I don't think I've ever seen or spoken to her since I was maybe 8 years old. So, I don't want to put anybody on blast, because it's not about that. This is just about me telling my story and hopefully being of benefit to others. Anyway, I digress. So I'm in the room. I'm on my toy box. I'm making out with this airwife. And she comes in opens the door, startles me, sees what I'm doing. I stop what I'm doing immediately because for some reason I felt, first of all, violated that she busted into my room, but also like I was doing something wrong and I should stop because this was a private moment for me. And I remember her, I don't remember if it was just at that moment or if she came back into the room, but I remember her saying to me, "You want to do that for real?" And, I was a precocious little kid. I loved girls at a very young age. So I was like, yeah, it's all make-believe anyway. So let's do this, And so I remember us getting on my bunk bed. I had bunk bed, the top and bottom. I slept on the top, but we climbed in on the bottom bunk bed. And I just remember her positioning me on top of her and kind of like maybe kissing me. Yeah, I remember her kissing me a little bit with tongue, I'm pretty sure, because I remember that she used to smoke. This young woman smoked, so I remember that taste, which I didn't recognize as being the taste of a person who was a smoker until many years later when I dated a smoker. I was taken back to that moment. You see what I'm saying? These things affect us in ways that we'll never be able to understand fully. Anyway, I remember that first time, and I remember liking it, I don't remember being able to get an erection at 5 years old, so I don't remember that being a part of it, but I do remember the stimulation of attention. I remember feeling her boobs and liking it. I remember her probably trying to manipulate my penis and trying to put it inside her. And by the way, we weren't fully nude. We had clothes on, at least that first time, if I remember correctly. And I just remember her touching my privates, basically, kissing me and kind of grinding under me. And so, again, that first time, I liked it. It was fun. I had never done that before, and it felt good. The next time, though, I think it was like my mom was out of the house. My little sister was born at this time, and I think she was probably just barely walking. And so I just remember my mom being out of the house, and me and this girl being in the house alone, and her locking the door and us sneaking into the room. And I think we were on the top bunk this time, and I think we were more nude. Again, it was, if I remember correctly, it was pleasant. It wasn't a bad thing. When did it get bad? I don't remember specifically, and I don't remember what turned me off about it, but maybe it's just because, a 5-year-old gets bored with stuff, you know what I mean? So maybe at some point I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. And of course, she took offense to that. Now, by this time, I was aware that this was wrong just because of how she was being sneaky about it. I was aware that she was stealing cigarettes from my mom just because I don't remember how I knew, but I knew it. But these were a part of secrets that were building up. And so the trauma part comes when I told her no, basically, because from that point on, she started threatening me. One of the threats I remember specifically was where she was from. She had a boyfriend who was an adult. This is what she told me. I got a boyfriend, and maybe she said he was like 18 or something. And she basically said, if you tell anybody about this, I'm gonna fly my boyfriend out here and he's gonna kick your little ass. 5, you know what I'm saying? That threat was serious to me. So, I kept the secret. Another really traumatic part was, probably even more traumatic, is it was nighttime, and so I guess my mom was out somewhere, and maybe my sister was put to bed or something. But I think that she was trying to get next to me again, trying to get me to do it again. And by this time I was afraid of her, and I didn't want anything to do with it. And her response was to take me into the backyard and lock me in the shed. Now, most little kids are afraid of the dark. Most little kids are afraid of being alone. And so I had the combination of those things, of being locked in a dark tool shed outside and just screaming, for help, and knowing that no one was going to come help me. I don't know how long I was in the shed, because I would imagine, because of where we lived, I would imagine that eventually some neighbors would have heard and there would have been trouble. So maybe she took me out really quickly. I really don't remember. But I do know that was a really traumatic part. And so from that point until the time that she left, she basically just terrorized me. So when she first came, when we were first, she first came for the visit, I liked her. There's no reason not to. She was a girl. She was nice, But again, after this molestation started happening, it got darker. And then the rest of the time that she was there, I just really didn't want to be anywhere near her. And so it was increasingly difficult to, hide this. But I never told my mom about it, not until maybe I was in my, teens or later teens or early adulthood in my 20s or something, I think I might have mentioned it. But what I do feel, though, is I don't feel any anger or animosity toward this person because she was a child. And because she was a child and smoking and doing sexual things, there's obviously a chance that this was happening to her where she lived. This was perhaps a normal occurrence for her, or something that was no big deal for her because she was probably sexualized at a young age. And I'm not mad at my mom because how would she know if I didn't say anything about it? Also, I found out then that my mom had gone through something similar too, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know to what extent. I don't remember really getting into the details of it. I just know that my mom has also suffered from, someone taking advantage of her. So this is why I'm saying it's pandemic. I'm a world traveler. I've never been anywhere where I didn't suspect or actually see or hear about a person who is taking advantage of children. You know what I'm saying? Like, this whole Epstein shit and this motherfucker, supposedly committing suicide while he was in prison in custody, and and he's got this long laundry list of celebrities and politicians and so-called important people and wealthy people who've gone out to his Lolita Island and flown on his Lolita Express private jet. I've seen the list of some of the people on there, and if these people were there under false pretense, okay, you know what I'm saying? We all know people, and we don't necessarily know all the people that we think we know. Let's keep that 100, because I've come across people in my lifetime who are total bags of shit that I didn't really know that they were until, I followed my instincts. I paid close attention. I was like, there's something up with this person. And then come to find out, okay, this woman has done XYZ. This dude cheats on his girl. This guy beats his girl. This girl, manipulates men for money. Whatever the case may be, you find out stuff about people. And again, I'm not here to judge. As a Virgo, we are very discriminating and judgmental by nature. But because of that, I make sure that I take extra precaution to do my best not to allow my opinions or thoughts or feelings about people be how I treat them. I try to treat everybody with the same amount of respect, because I do believe that we all deserve respect. That said, there are pedophiles out there that are ruining people's lives. And because it's pandemic, I think that it's a problem that our governments are involved. Obviously, the churches are involved. I haven't come across any religion that's exempt. Any religion that's been exempt from, having this as a part of their culture, at least a part of their secret culture. You know what I'm saying? I think that there are a lot of nasty people out there getting away with a lot of nasty shit. So this is a part of me telling my story, and I'm freestyling this, guys, by the way, because I'm not really I haven't really thought about this in many years, but I just thought I'd turn on the camera and just start talking about it and see where I can get with it. How has this affected my relationships today? What I've noticed in my my sexual relationships with women is that this is very intimate, obviously, but whatever. Again, this is in the name of trying to be of benefit to humanity by telling the story. But I think that the way it's affected, one way that I know it's affected my sexual relationships is that I can't say I prefer, but I'm okay with a woman being slightly sexually aggressive, in that when she wants intimacy, she's not afraid to say it. So I find I've been in relationships where a woman might be timid, so I don't really know where she's at sexually, and so that causes a challenge for me. But a woman who's like, I'm feeling you, I'd like to be with you, that tends to be more comfortable for me. And that's on the lighter side of how this early sexualization has affected me. Where it affects me deeply and where it can be a challenge, a detriment, I don't know, you'd have to ask my exes, but I think that where it has affected me negatively is that when I'm not feeling sexual, I have a difficult time telling my partner, not now, or not tonight, or I'm not feeling it. You know what I'm saying? In that regard, it makes me feel like that the typical, the stereotypical way we talk about women who say, roll over on some, I got a headache shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of what it feels like for me when I find myself in a position with a woman, and she's kind of feeling froggy and I'm not feeling like jumping. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'll find myself begrudgingly doing sexual things, being turned off the whole time, feeling violated, and unable to speak on it. And at least with the last couple of women that I've been with whom I had sexual contact with, who I found a level of comfortability with, I've been able to express this, you know. But that's after years of it happening, me kind of being, you know, remotely aware of it, but, you know, just in recent years being able to speak up on it, like, yo, and it's, again, done in the service of this other person, because not only for me, but for this other person, because I never want to make a person feel rejected, or, you know, especially somebody that you love and are having a sexual relationship with. You never want them to feel rejected, because as men, we know what it's like to be rejected. Like we're expected to, you know, in social situations, step to a person of interest and put ourselves out there and face rejection in some cases, you know, and that's not just a blow to the ego, but it really affects us, you know what I'm saying? So with that in mind, I try to be aware of how another person's feel. I don't even try. This is a part of my personality. I'm always aware of how another person is feeling. I mean, not say always, but most of the time I'm aware, even if I don't voice it. And so in those cases, you know, I try to just say, like, in the two instances that I can think of, I just basically let them know, like, listen, I don't want you to feel rejected, but here's how I'm feeling. And because it's so difficult for me to articulate, I'm hoping that from this point on, you pick up on it so I don't have to keep talking about this shit. If I'm not gung-ho in a sexual situation, if you don't feel like my manhood is on rock, you know what I'm saying, then there's a good chance that I'm not really feeling it in that moment, and just let it go so that I don't feel like I'm rejecting you, but even, and from my perspective, I don't feel put upon, or being taken advantage of, or being coerced or forced. So, yeah, that's all I've got to say about that. There are more stories, because I think that when a person is molested once, there's a chance that it's going to happen again, because that vibration is now in you. You know what I'm saying? Again, there's always going to be a sexual predator out there who's willing to take advantage of you. Their job is to find people that are vulnerable. You know, their job is going to be to take advantage. And so they're going to seek out people that they know they can get at. You know what I'm saying? And so I guess I'll just talk about it now. The next time I was molested was by one of my babysitters. And it was, I would say, I was probably 8. Yeah, around 7 or 8. The babysitter was over, and, you know, she was a teenager. I'd give her maybe 14, 15. And again, because I was sexualized at a young age, and this is a teenager who's got boobs, you know, that's another important. I don't mean to make light of this, but, you know, because of my early sexual experiences, I really love female pubic hair. I don't like when women shave it all off, because that reminds me of little girls, and I'm not attracted to little girls. I've always been attracted to older women, probably because of, you know, because of this, what happened to me. And breasts. I'm a lover of big breasts. Can't help it. I mean, I love all breasts. If they're there, I love them. If they're not there, I love them. But I particularly am very fond of large-breasted women, and I don't know that it comes from these situations, because I don't think either one of these girls were particularly endowed. But I just know that it's, you know, it's a part of what attracts me as a man. Anyway, this one, maybe this second girl was definitely more endowed and more mature, a little bit older than the first one. And I just remember, like, watching some HBO movie while she's babysitting. My sister wasn't around, probably in bed, and her having me come over and lay on top of her. And I don't remember us doing much. Like, we didn't make out or anything, but I just remember laying on top of her and laying in her cleavage, which I rather enjoyed, but also felt that tinge of guilt that, you know, comes with receiving pleasure from something that feels uncomfortable, basically. What else can I say? That was that. And then the next time, which was probably the most serious, was around the same age. I was 8 years old. There was an old gray-haired, not handicapped, but like not fully functioning old white guy who lived across the street from me in these apartments in Biloxi, Mississippi. At some point, all the little kids in the neighborhood were black kids, except for one white kid who eventually wasn't hanging out with us anymore. I think he had a disease or something. But basically all of the kids that I hung out with in my area were all black kids, and this at the time. But this guy who lived across the street was an old white guy who lived alone, kind of like a shut-in. Like if you're in his place, it was kind of dirty, like he didn't get out much, kind of thing. And at some point, some of the friends I hung out with, if I was 8, the next counterpart was also 8, and then there was kids that were younger than us that went down to say maybe between 8 and 4 years old. And one day a friend was like, "Hey, you want to go over to Mr. So-and-so's house?" Okay, I gotta pause again. I don't know why this keeps doing that. Anyway, hey, you want to go over to this guy's house and hang out? He lets us do whatever we want. I'm 8. Yes, I want to do whatever I want. I was a latchkey kid. I don't remember where my sister was at this time. Probably at home with my mom. But at this particular day, I just remember going over. He had Oreo cookies, snacks. We could drink whatever we want, eat whatever we want. He had cigarettes. He let us smoke. So that was the first time I ever tried smoking. Didn't like it. I was just, trying to play grown. I took a few puffs and didn't like it. But, he was just always kind. So let's say I went over to his house a few days in a row, or maybe a few times, maybe not in a row, but I've been over there a few times. And, stayed for a bit and then bounced, you know what I'm saying? No big deal. This one particular Friday, me and my best friend were gonna go roller skating on the military base that we lived near. They would have like a Friday night roller skating thing in their gym. And there was this girl named Portia that I really dug, and I really wanted to get next to her. I wanted to hold hands and skate with her, kind of thing, So I was geeked to go, but it cost $250. And when I asked my mom, she said, "I ain't got $250. Get out of my face," basically. And so I'm desperate to go hang out with this girl and my best friend. So I think, oh yeah, Mr. So-and-so across the street, maybe I could go do some work for him. For some reason, I realized at that age, you can work and get money. And so I roll over, knock on the door. He's like, "Hey, come on in." And so I explained to him, like, "Listen, there's a roller skating thing I want to go to tonight. It costs $250. I basically need to earn a couple bucks. Can I clean up for you, washing dishes or whatever the hell?" I don't remember specifically what I said, but I do remember him saying, "Oh, you don't have to do anything for me. You can just go get the money yourself." So I remember him, which I thought was weird. He didn't go get the money. He told me where I could go get the money. So he's sitting on an easy chair in a robe and some slippers. I didn't even stop to think that there was nothing under the robe, but here's this old man sitting around his house. He's chilling, on a Saturday or some shit, Friday afternoon, chilling. And he's like, "Okay," so he starts to give me instructions. "Go in the room, look on the top shelf, reach into there and take out what you need." I only needed $250. I don't know that I took more, but knowing me, I probably took, an extra 50 cents or something so I could get a snack or something, you know what I'm saying? I don't remember there being a gang of money up there. I just remember, taking some money. And as I come out of the room, I'm on some, "Okay, thanks," and I'm about to bounce. And he's like, "Hey, don't leave yet. Come over here for a sec." So I walk over to him, feeling uneasy that he stopped me from going. But, no big deal. Like, I'm still a little oblivious to what's going on, you know what I'm saying? So I walk over, and he's like, sit down here for a sec, instructing me to sit on his lap. So that's when the red flags. I'm like, wait, what? I'm 8. I'm not like, I'm still a kid, but I'm not like a baby. You know what I'm saying? I don't sit on adults' laps, especially men. But I did it out of, naivete, being a child and talking to an adult, and he just gave me some money, okay. So I sit down, and I don't even think it took a nanosecond before he reached around to the front of me and put his hand down my pants. I distinctly remember his fingertips grazing my shaft, and I jumped up off his lap, ran out the door. That was that. Okay, so I'm like, okay, that was fucked up, and I felt traumatized. I felt scared. I felt whatever. I run back to the house, and I don't remember telling my mom. Well, I definitely didn't tell her what happened, to be clear. Didn't tell my mom what happened. But I don't remember what I told her about getting money. I feel like I maybe said, hey, I did something. I did a chore or something for the man across the street. He gave me $250. Can I go to the thing tonight? The answer was yes. I went. And what I remember that night was, got cut off a bit there, little technical difficulties, but basically I was saying, because of the trauma, I didn't really have fond memories of that experience, obviously. And that was that. So the next thing I remember was maybe a few days later, a knock at the front door. My mom's on some, go get the door. I answer the door. Well, I look through the peephole, and I see 3 or 4 angry black women. I saw, their faces through the door. Not knowing what was up, I opened the door, and they're like, hi, is your mom here? I'm like, Mom, some neighbors are here, you know what I'm saying? So mom's comes out, and I remember one of the ladies saying to my mom, like, can you have him go in the back room, or, leave us for a minute? So my mom tells me to go to my room, which of course I obediently did. I didn't really ever talk back to my mom or give her a lot of guff because my mom didn't play that shit. Anyway, so I hear them talking, but I can't hear what they're talking about. But I basically knew because I recognized at least one of the ladies as one of my friend's moms. And so I instinctively knew that if that thing happened to me and there's 3 or 4 angry black women at the house, some of their kids must have gotten touched too. So a few minutes later, my mom comes and, calls me out of the room and basically says to me, did that man across the street touch you? And I said, yes. And that's basically all I remember about that conversation. I don't remember her saying much more beyond that. Fast forward to what I do remember next, a court case. So apparently, this old man was, arrested and taken to jail, and us kids were gathered to testify. So I remember going down to the courthouse with my mom and sister. I didn't see any of my friends there. Maybe they separated us on days, or maybe they just, or maybe they were there and I just didn't see them because they were hidden in another room or whatever. What I remember was waiting for my name to be called, and then having to leave my mom and sister in a hallway and having to go into this courtroom, I guess it was. But it was set up like, it wasn't set up like a traditional courtroom with a judge and then, you get on the stand and, there's a room full of people. It was just a panel, like a semicircle panel of, say, 8 adults and me kind of standing in the middle. Maybe I sat down. I don't remember that part, but I just remember going into the room and them asking me to explain what happened to me, what my story was, I told them. The next thing I remember was being in a room that was maybe a little bit more traditional, where there was a judge up on the stand by himself, and me standing with my mom and sister, and then seeing the old man in the orange jumpsuit, shackled by his arms and his legs, and walking through slowly and pathetically. They're walking him through the room. Like, I don't even remember him staying in the room. I just remember him walking through with two guards on his side. And he didn't look at me. I didn't really even try to look at his face. I just remember seeing and recognizing who he was, and maybe just looking down. And for some reason, what stuck in my head is that he was sentenced to 7 to 8 years in jail. I don't know if that was a number. I don't know if I heard that verdict in there. I don't remember if it was a story that I heard my mom tell somebody else later. I just remember that number, 7 or 8 years, in jail. So he was locked up, and that was that. What I don't remember is seeing my little homies much after that, because I feel like I probably moved relatively soon after that. Just the dynamic in the neighborhood was changed. Like, all the little friends I used to hang out with and play with every day, I didn't hang out and play with anymore, Him being sentenced to time like that, I kind of remember thinking, okay, did this dude penetrate these children? Like, did he do worse to them than what he did to me? Because what he did to me was traumatic, to be sure. Very, very traumatic for me at the time, and years later, which I'll get to. But at that time, I just don't remember him. I don't remember hearing what happened to the other kids. I don't remember being able to ask them. I don't remember ever seeing them after that court case, So fast forward to, I'm say 18 or 19. After high school, I graduated when I was, 17. I left my mom's house at, 2 weeks after I graduated from high school, and went to fashion school. I went to FIDM. This was in California. And I was out of the house for maybe 6 months, maybe the first semester. And the people I was renting a room from, I was, because I basically moved out of my house, rented a room, and commuted to college, because where another friend lived was closer to my school. That only lasted about 6 months. So I find myself back at home for a little bit, maybe for, the better part of a year. And during that time, obviously, I couldn't just be hanging out. I had to work. So I found myself a job cleaning houses, basically. I started working for this mom and pop home cleaning service. And sometimes I would go to places alone. Sometimes I would work with a partner. And on this particular day, I was working with a partner. This is an older white lady from the East Coast. We really got along well. I liked her. She had that East Coast attitude, which I'm very much used to. And so we got along well. And this was maybe our first time working together. And our assignment was to go to this place that was maybe about a half an hour from where I lived, to meet up with her there. And we were cleaning a house for these two priests who were brothers who lived together. These priests were, I really couldn't tell you at the time. I just know that they were old men and they were priests. And when we got there was nobody there. They left a key for us, and our job was to just basically go in and clean their place up. So when her and I got there, we met at the porch, and we walked into this house. And I don't think these men had ever had their place cleaned ever. The shit was disgusting, and they were obviously smokers, so much so that their walls were yellow. So imagine white walls, and imagine a yellow. It looked like a dirty T-shirt. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was just filthy. So her and I broke down duties. We went in and banged it out, maybe 4 hours or so. By the time we were done, the place was as clean as we can make it. You know what I'm saying? I do remember trying to clean some walls in the living room and shit, and having trouble getting like the yellowish stain off of it, and the smell of, cigarettes and old white men, permeating the place. Um, so when we were done, just as we were finishing up, one of the brothers came home. One of the priests came home. I don't remember if he was in his traditional garb, like with the collar and all that. I don't remember that part, but remember him coming in and being amazed at the work that we did, and he was just praising us, like, "Oh wow, this is great," blah blah blah. So he's thanking the lady, and then he comes over to thank me and put a check in my hand or put some money in my hand. And so I was geeked. I was like, yeah, hard day's work, 4 hours of being on the grind, cleaning up other people's disgusting toilets and shit. And now I'm getting paid. So he comes over to me, gingerly, I might add, and puts his hand on my shoulder and says, "Thank you so much for the job you did," and puts the check in my hand. When this man's hand touched my shoulder, chills ran through my body. And in that moment, I didn't know what the deal was. All I know is that this old man touched me on the shoulder. I felt chills. And right after that, I got the hell out of Dodge. I'm in my car driving home. I'm on the freeway and I'm thinking about like, yo, that shit was weird. This motherfucker must be evil. Because I'm very much a person who lives by instinct, listens to my inner voice. I've never been away from this voice. So when the voice is speaking, I know there's no lie in it. I know that if it's God, if there's a God, that's God's voice speaking to me directly, telling me like, yo, danger, or yo, something's about to go down, or this is what's what, right? So I'm driving and I'm thinking about like, yo, that was crazy. That was crazy. And then it snapped. I realized that the look of this guy, his age, and his manner reminded me, obviously, of the white man who touched me that one time. You know what I mean? So I just assumed then that like, yo, that shit is obviously still affecting me today, and I can't say that I've always had a distrust for old white men. Like I said, I don't really think that way. Like, despite being a black man who's mostly grown up in America, I obviously have my opinions about old white men because they are our main oppressors. You know what I'm saying? They're the ones who have done us dirty, who beat us in the streets, who call us out our names, you know what I'm saying? Just basically have raped my culture. So, if we're keeping it 100, and no disrespect to my white friends in the world, because because I grew up very multiculturally, I literally have a love for all people. Like I don't discriminate in that way. But having said that, I don't feel like I've outwardly ever held any disdain toward this particular part of our population. But I feel like after that situation that I had something inside of me that has me not trust them. And since then, I've had older white male friends who kind of could possibly remind me of that molester. I've had friends in my life, you know what I'm saying? So it's not like they've been completely removed and I don't trust any of them. But I am saying that, because of that situation, obviously it's tainted my experience, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I feel like for anybody who's gone through what I've gone through or worse, I have a very good friend who, grew up with a father who molested her over the course of years, from the age of 9, basically, until she graduated from high school. And I'm definitely not going to blow up her spot, but, you know, um, it's, I feel thankful to have gotten away with my experience. When I say gotten away, I'm thankful that that man never penetrated me and it never went any further than literally the tips of his fingers grazing the tip of my penis. You know what I'm saying? That was it. I got the fuck out of Dodge, right? But for girls who are molested by their fathers, like we're talking, or boys too, or whomever, it doesn't matter who you are, but like to be molested by a person who's supposed to be your caretaker, who's supposed to be looking out for you, who you're supposed to trust. I can't imagine that shit. It breaks my heart to even think about that right now. But again, that's why I'm talking about this. If you've ever found yourself in a situation like this, you've forgotten about it, this is reminding you or whatever, and you haven't gotten therapy, I implore you to get therapy. Again, I haven't done it yet, but it's not because I'm running from it. It's because I need money to do it. But I'm very, very happy and looking forward to the day where I can speak to a professional about this who has some expertise in it, who has some empathy, and who's somebody who can really be of benefit to getting over the story. In the meantime, I'm telling this to you as therapy, as I've said to, a few other people in my life, people that have been close to me. That's all I got to say about that. Please feel free to leave comments, ask questions. If you care to be on this podcast and share your story too as a means of therapy or as a means of helping people, please get at me. I'm more than happy to, do what I can to make that happen. As I'm new to podcasting and being on YouTube, I still have to build up my equipment to do this. Like right now, I'm doing this on my laptop and my cell phone. I've got a camera that I haven't tried, but I need like better equipment. But I do the best I can with what I've got. And as you can see on my channel, I've got other places I've interviewed people. So, if you're down, get at me. Oh, and if you like my Free Up t-shirt, if you haven't seen that, check this out. Boom, right? Boom. Free Up from the Mantra collection. I'll leave some details in the box below, and you can cop one of these too. You know what I'm saying? In the meantime, give thanks for listening. Please give me a like if you found this beneficial. Please share this with other people who you think have gone through it or might be going through it and afraid to talk about it. Maybe this will be an inspiration for them to free up as well. Please forward it. And yeah, you know what I'm saying? Support. Ring the bell if you want to hear more stories, because I got a lot. They're not all this dark. You know what I'm saying? I got travel stories and just I've had a very blessed and interesting life, I think. So I like to share some of those stories too. So come back at me. Thank you for listening. Give thanks. It's your man Dashawn is. Let's keep it one, baby. One.